I need to show people, the challenges of people with disability have when they go to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
Most people with disability have to navigate, do research, make sure that wherever they go is accessible. And if it's not accessible, they don't go.
Right.
Right? So how can we make those places that are not accessible for people with disabilities? Is by bringing awareness, by bringing education.
Redefining perception of people with disabilities? That is a good way to use social media. Just ask our guest today. Her name is Marcela Marañón, otherwise known as Journey of a Brave Woman. My name is Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. At 20 years old, Marcela survived a fatal car accident. New to the United States and knowing very little English, her life took a tragic turn that night as she lost her boyfriend in the car accident, as well as her ability to function physically as she always had. Today, she leverages the power of social media to document what traveling looks like for people with disabilities, and she highlights opportunities for communities to become more accessible. Journey of a Brave Woman, which is how you can find her on Instagram, Facebook, pretty much anywhere, is very appropriately named, and this episode surrounds how she has journeyed from becoming disabled to really equipping and educating people, places, and organizations by documenting and sharing her journeys. Leading this conversation is Josh Veach, one of the co-directors of Go Shout Love. Please take a second to rate and review this podcast on whatever platform you are listening on, and here is Josh to get us started.
Marcela, thank you so much for being our guest on the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so good to have you.
Thank you for having me in your show,
Thank
your
you.
podcast.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of get into what has been your journey over the last few years and what you're doing now, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, kind of what's happened before today.
Sure. When I was 20 years old, I was involved in a car accident that, made me paralyzed from the waist down. And also I lost my leg and my boyfriend passed away. So that was 20 years ago when I immigrated from Peru to Dallas, Texas. So just imagine 20 years ago, living with a disability wasn't very fun at all, but this is it's part of my story.
So how old were you when you came from Peru?
I moved to America when I was 19 years old to study English at a community college. And a year later, that's when my accident happened. So
you, at that time, you did not know English. So you're navigating, going through all of the medical issues that come with having an accident like that without really being able to communicate effectively. Were there any resources in place to help you on from a language barrier standpoint?
When you are in the ICU bed and lots of doctors come and are, around your bed, and you see your mom and dad on the back, and they're telling you, we had bad news. You will never be able to walk again. And for me, it's like, what are you talking? I mean, I don't know what you're saying. I don't understand. What do you mean? Like, I'm not going to be talking. I'm not going to be walking again. I mean, I cannot feel my legs. So what's going on? So that's when my dad came and said, yeah, you're not going to walk again. But I was in so much drugs, really, that, I didn't know. I didn't understand it when I was there. But I think that, I was in so much pain that I couldn't understand it. It was so much drugs that after a week later, when they came and said, we have to amputate your leg, or not week later, like a couple days later. Yeah, they say we have to amputate your legs because the infection is spreading all the way to your knee,
Mm.
and so your leg needs to be amputated. What happened is that when the accident happened, I got ejected. I was sitting in behind the co-pilot seat, and I got ejected from that car. So at that time, I was wearing heels. So my left heel got stuck under the co-pilot seat. So when I got ejected, it got apart. So it was like rip off from my leg.
Oh my
So when
gosh.
I hit that, yeah. So when I hit that tree, I broke my spine, spinal cord when I hit that tree, and then fell under, fell inside a bushes, like the bushes, like
Mm-hmm.
around, and so it was almost midnight. So at that time, the sprinkler systems in these shopping centers turn on at midnight. So the sprinkler system turned on, and all this water, all the mud got into my broken part, like
Mm.
where my feet, my ankle, because I
Yeah.
didn't have my foot at the time. So all that infection spread all the way to first they say we have to amputate you below the knee, and then they say no, we have to amputate you above the knee because of the infection.
Yeah.
So
Man.
many bad things happened that night, and in seconds, I lost the mobility to walk. I lost one of my limbs. My boyfriend passed away. I was dating him for a year, and it was a tragedy. It
Sure.
was it was really hard for me. Most people lose one thing in their life, either a loved one, either they become disabled. But with me, with my story, everything happened in just minutes.
Yeah.
So
So after the accident, in the years, especially those early years, are there any moments that you remember that kind of shifted your perspective, that helped you find hope for the future, that helped you move forward instead of staying in that season of grief and loss? And I'm sure that that's something that comes and goes, but instead of just staying there and always being in a place of just constant despair. Does that make sense?
yes, of course. And so I believe that my accident happened for a reason. And when I was going through that difficult moment, I met very impressive people.
Mm.
And this is why I believe that mentorship is so important, because really you cannot get out of a really bad situation like mine without having good people there for you. So, you know, at that time I was very young. After my accident, I didn't know what I want to do. I didn't know English, so I had to stop college. So I always see my mom being positive. My parents always work. My siblings were going to school, and we all were doing life. And I was still alive. So I had to do life with what I had. And I embraced every single day of my life during that time. I
Mm.
didn't have medical insurance, just imagine that.
Wow.
So because I came here with the student visa, so I didn't have the same opportunities as other people that live here. I didn't have disability that will help me every month. No, I had to do what I had to do to move forward in my life, because there was no way for me just to stay at home. And that was my one of the things that I thought, and I know that people may say, well, that's incredible. How do you do that? But my mom always pushed me to be independent, and made me do things that I thought at that moment I couldn't do because I was disabled. I felt disabled. You know what I mean? Like after I got discharged, like 6 months later or 3 months, no, 6 months later, I start driving again. So, and then when you start driving, when I started driving, I say, look, it's not that bad
Mm-hmm.
because I can go to school, you know, and be independent.
Yeah.
So I don't need my mom. So I have to adapt. So what I did is I accepted, I adapted, and I overcome it.
Hmm.
And that gave me a new shift in my life. Once I have all this, that was like, what is next for you, Marcela? So now you're driving, now you're babysitting while you're going to
Hmm.
school in a wheelchair, you're having friends. You lost a lot of friends because not many people can cope with a new you. And so, and that's how it is. You go, I and then I had good mentors. One of my good friends, he was in a wheelchair. He was a very successful, business owner. He was a very cool guy in a wheelchair. And for me to see that, it's like, if he can do that, I can do that too.
Yeah. How did you
And
connect
I
with
am
him?
always this time. Um, well, at that time, I didn't have medical insurance, so my one of the ladies that I did babysitter for. I was her babysitter before my accident and after. She came from a very wealthy family and very wealthy friends, so they hosted a fundraiser. So, and they were the ones that connected me with this medical equipment company. And Brad Upgrove, he at that time he was the owner, and
Okay.
so he was the one that delivered all the wheelchairs and did all the medical supplies. And even when I was very short on medical supplies, he just gave it to me because he knew my situation. So I couldn't have done everything I have done without people helping me. And this is why I always try to pass it forward with anyone
Yeah.
that I meet. Always I try to help out because I know what it's like to have nothing
Yeah.
in a very difficult time.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that driving was a pretty big deal in kind of regaining maybe control, or like an idea of hope and what you, instead of maybe a mindset of what you can't do, of kind of reclaiming the things that you can do. What other major milestones have you accomplished in the last 18 years that maybe immediately after the accident you wouldn't have thought you would have done?
Okay, well, I went back to school. I was enrolled into a program to be a medical coder and biller, just something quick to put me back in the workforce,
Yeah.
right? Something that can help me generate money. So I got into that, and I finished it, and then I worked for the healthcare industry for close to almost 10 years. And during that time, I met my ex-husband, Gabriel. He's a really good guy. We're still very good friends. And I had my daughter, Marcela. So when you have a child, and this happens to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to be disabled or live with a disability. That when you have a child, you do anything for your kids.
Right.
And she was my biggest motivation. She was the part of my life that I need to keep pushing and to keep growing as a person and and you know fulfill my dreams. Because as a parent, I feel like we also need to fulfill our dreams to be happy, so that way we can to so that way we can just give the best to our kids.
Mm-hmm. So now you have a powerful presence on social media through the Journey of a Brave Woman on Instagram and Facebook. And then you also have a website as well. So share a little bit about how all of that happened and how you hope to leverage that influence.
Well, the Journey of a Brave Woman started because I back in 2017. But before that, I became a ambassador for Real Robotics, and I traveled all over the world, and I met very high, very 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 high influencers, like people with kings and queens
Yeah.
and presidents and stuff like that. So that kind of opened opened doors for me in a way where I was being recognized by the disability community, right? Because I was the number one in the country to own a very interesting breakthrough technology like the real exoskeleton that helps people with spinal cord injuries to walk again. So
Yeah.
that was so people started recognizing, oh yeah, Marcela, the poster girl of the company, she always travels, she goes here, that, and here and there. And so I decided to open a Facebook, and I say, oh yeah, a Facebook page. But and then days later, Instagram was my second platform that I use, and it started as a okay, well, I'm gonna create Instagram to help people to understand this technology since I've been using it for already like 4 years or
Mm-hmm.
3 years. And I started, people like it, and then every year I felt like my mission and my purpose shifted to different directions. I didn't want to be the poster girl for this company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I
Sure.
wanted to do something else. So I love my company. I love the company. I mean, they're my family forever. But I said there is more than me walking with that technology. So I want
Mm-hmm.
to show the world how independent a person with disability can be, how brilliant um, a person with disability can be,
Sure. Yeah.
And so I started, you know, um, posting photos of me transferring from my wheelchair to the car, doing adaptive sports. So show the world, because there's not a lot of education out there.
Right.
People think that people with disabilities are just like they're all sitting in their wheelchair and they don't do anything at home, and there are a lot of trouble and
Yeah.
not trouble, but like we have the people perception is that we live in a sad world,
Right.
like our world is very sad, and it's not like that.
That you're wholly
So
defined by what you can't do. Like you're defined by the disability.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we're defined by the disability and not by what we do. So I decided to use my Instagram to do that, and then traveling, the opportunity of traveling, came up, and people love it. People love how I was, showing accessibility in different parts of the world. And that was the year that I got divorced, where I decided to take a whole break for myself and travel the world, and I really like it. So, and I cannot stop since then, because I get to meet a lot of people. I get to bring a lot of information. I give a lot of hope to people that
Sure.
think that especially newly injured that they have never traveled, after their accident in a wheelchair. So they see that and say, well, if she can do it, I can do it. And like my mentor did when I was, 20 years old,
Right.
so I want to be able to do. And most people do not learn by when you tell them, oh, this is what you need to do.
Right.
Most people are visual.
Yep.
And I think that Instagram is a great platform, a visual platform, where you can go and educate people about anything. So that's the journey of a brave woman. So the journey of a brave woman is about a woman who travels all over the world and brings accessibility awareness and brings hope, brings education to not only the disabled community, but to everyone,
Right.
because all my followers are people with and without disabilities,
Sure.
and to show that anything is possible. So
So that traveling started as part of your relationship and employment, really, as with the robotics company, with the technology, the equipment that you were using.
yes.
But now are you fully just doing that on your own and kind of have your own setup on working with different countries and helping them become more accessible? Or what does that look like now from in the relationship with those locations?
I started with the company, but now I'm doing it all by myself. And what I do is when I travel to any country, I try to work with any nonprofit there, any nonprofit that is dedicated to make their country accessible. So that's one of my most that's what I prioritize the most when I travel. Like, for example, when I went to India and I donated those ramps and I hosted this event for disabled kids, I I contact this organization in India called Ramp My City from my friend Patrick, and we did this together. So and then he explained to me accessibility in India. I tried to do that. I did the same in Israel. I met one of the most, amazing guys. He runs Access Israel. He has done amazing work in Israel for wheelchair users or
Mm-hmm.
any disability. And I tried to do that in Jordan when I was there, but she got really sick and she passed away.
Mm.
So most of these leaders that are really helping their countries are people in wheelchairs, are people with spinal cord injuries, paraplegics, quadriplegics. They are trying to bring awareness, educations, you know, and accessibility in their community. And so that's for me is very interesting to connect with these people because when I go to their country, I start talking about it and they're checking me in every single story to see what Marcela is gonna say, what Marcela is gonna put in
Right.
social media, because it's like you can as a leader as a, you have your community and you show this and you think it's perfect, right? But someone else comes and they start like paying attention, checking out to see if it's accessible or no, and you're like, oh my god, I wonder what she's gonna say.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do right now. So
So you
to
come
connect with
alongside
different.
you come alongside leaders in a country or in a community that are leading maybe a nonprofit that are advocating for
Yeah.
accessibility, and you kind of lend your voice and lend your influence while you're there to kind of help raise the flag on things that need to change or things that could be improved upon for those that might be disabled in that community.
Yeah, well, I'm trying
Yeah,
to do that.
sure.
It's not there right now. I'm just like the tourist, someone that came from America and came to my country, and all I'm doing is like really like if they have like a really nice place to visit, like the Taj Mahal, I go to the Taj Mahal and I start looking. Okay, well, do they have handicap accessible restaurants? Do they have ramps? Do they have these? And then I get all this information, and then when I come home, I start talking about it. Hey, listen, if you want to go to the Taj Mahal, this is how the ramps look like. This
Yeah,
is where you're gonna find that accessible restroom. So that's what I'm doing. I'm not helping them with with to improve their accessibility or donating money to them or anything like that. All I'm doing is just, hey, I would like to meet you. I would like to see what you're doing. I think that your work is incredible.
yeah,
Let's try to, make connections, and I'm gonna spread the word in my social media about the work that you're doing. And that's why every time I go to a place, I tag that organization so people knows where this organization come from. You know
got
what
it.
I mean?
Yeah,
Without me getting into laws or into their into their politics. I
right.
just
Yeah.
go and yeah.
Got it. So what does it look like? What is when you kind of choose a place, or how do you choose a place that you're going to go? And then what is the process of kind of mapping out and preparing for that trip?
Well, sometimes I just go. I say I want to go there. I'm not even gonna. I'm not gonna even worry if it's accessible or not. Seriously, I go because I need to show people, the challenges of people with disability have to have no the people with disability have when they go to a new place.
Mm-hmm.
Most people with disability have to navigate, do research, make sure that wherever they go is accessible, and if it's not accessible, they don't go,
Right.
right? So how can we make those places that are not accessible for people with disabilities is by bringing awareness, by bringing education. So if I go to Portugal, Lisbon, okay, and I see that there is no ramps, I see that it's very hard for wheelchair users and stuff like that. Okay, fine, I'm gonna take videos, I'm gonna put photos, and I'm gonna share it in my social media. I'm gonna put a hashtag Lisbon, Portugal, city of Lisbon. Guess who's gonna watch it? Probably someone that is working into accessibility, maybe someone from tourism in Portugal, maybe, a politician, whoever is gonna see that.
Yeah.
And he's gonna feel embarrassed because they're having this chic, putting photos and saying that Lisbon is not accessible.
Yeah.
And we need more of that. We really need more of that. We need accessibility advocates that travel around the world and start bringing awareness about these issues, because if we just don't go because it's not accessible, we will never fix this issue. The world is not accessible for wheelchair users. The world is not prepared for people with disabilities. And the only way we can make it accessible is by bringing awareness and educating people. But it's never gonna change by saying, if it's not accessible, I don't go.
Yeah. I'm curious, based on kind of that example that you just used with, visiting Portugal and saying, hey, here's an area where you're not living up to what would be accessible standards. Do you get any feedback from community leaders? Do you ever get any feedback from them saying, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and what advice do you have? Like, do you see that sort of exchange happening where they ask for how can we improve, or what kind of feedback do you get from those locations?
Okay, so most of these ones, I think the country that I visit last year, because this is just starting. Okay, this is not this is very new. So, and I'm growing in social media, so the more you grow and the more followers you have, the more they pay attention to you.
Sure.
So, and but in India, for example, when I travel to Udaipur, Jaipur, Bangalore, well, my friend runs his organization in Bangalore. I went to Delhi, Nagra. It's very difficult when you're just a tourist to just get these politicians to be heard by them, right? But when I was in Jaipur and I started talking about Udaipur, and I started talking about how inaccessible the palace was, and Lake Pichola. Lake Pichola is one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. The number one location for weddings all around the world. And it was not accessible. And so the city of Udaipur, sent me a message on Instagram and say, we're really sorry that you don't have ramps. We're really sorry that you have to go through this. But in India, we are working in accessibility and we're paying more attention to that, right? So I always get messages like that, or I get messages from the same tourism officials and say, hey, if you're coming back, we would like to work with you so you can bring awareness about our accessibility sites, stuff like that.
Yeah. So it sounds
that's what I'm doing.
It sounds like some of those locations are honestly open, but maybe they don't know what they don't know, or maybe they haven't been able to get the resources they need to get that at the top of the priority list, to get some of those updates made. But it sounds like a lot of them are open, like they don't just disregard it.
Yeah, they are open for sure, and I'm pretty sure that they listen it. They already has listened and complained about it from the same people that live in, in these cities, in these countries. There's amazing organizations out there. A lot of people with disabilities fighting for their rights, not only in America, in every every country in the world.
Right.
And, some countries pay attention, some countries don't pay attention.
Right.
And so, and that's what I have noticed when I travel. The more I travel, the more I realize, you know, who really cares and who don't care.
Right.
Every country that I visit, they're gonna say, "Oh, Marcela is coming, and let's go and talk to her about it." Right?
She's gonna
No,
help
I
us
mean,
fix all of our
yeah.
problems. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's not gonna be like that. And then, but I really try to just like connect with other peers, around the world. I want to connect with, people with spinal cord injuries who are doing great, great, amazing things for their communities. And for me, these people are great leaders that I love to follow, because you learn so much. I'm not a master. I don't know much about accessibility. I didn't went to school to learn all the accessibility laws and stuff like that. I just speak from my own experiences.
Right.
I speak as someone who is in a wheelchair, who travels around the world and faces a lot of difficulties. And then I start talking about my point of view. My point of view is gonna be different from Joe,
Right.
the guy next to me sitting in a wheelchair.
Sure.
Or or different from Danny, the girl that is sitting next to me in a wheelchair. These are my own experiences, and this is what I'm trying to show in social media to just like share with them.
There are only a couple of days left in April, and before we jump back into featuring a family in the month of May, I want to take a second to give you the opportunity in helping us shout love in a different way for the month of April. We have launched 3 designs that are aiming to help remind us that we are all in this together and that we should be responsible for and to each other. There is still time left to participate, and join us as we team up with the nonprofit Laughing at My Nightmare and their COVID-19 relief program, which is sending gift cards to people with disabilities who need a bit of assistance during this season. Go to our website, goshout.love, and shop around and help us shout love and make an impact. Besides these great shirts, there are hoodies, mugs, hats, and more. 50% of gross profit from all sales during the month will go to their COVID-19 resource relief.
You mentioned that when you go to different places, a lot of times that you won't really look to see if there's any reviews based on accessibility. You're just going to go. For people that maybe aren't there yet, maybe they're not comfortable with that, or maybe their needs are so complex that isn't a viable option for them. Do you know of any trusted resources that they can go to get solid reviews and solid advice on where to go and where not to go?
Sure. Yes, there is a lot of accessibility bloggers, travel bloggers, disabled travel bloggers in the internet. Lots of them. There is a big group in Facebook called Accessible Travel Club.
Okay.
And so if you look in there, there's gonna be a lot of accessible tour companies. So where you can just go ahead and so they provide services in their countries. I don't go to them much because most of them are very expensive. I usually go by regular tour agencies, so that way, like, so that way they're not experts on accessibility.
Right.
And so I try to just work with them, because for me it's very important to work with people that don't know much about accessibility.
Sure.
If you're always gonna be, and for me it's like this, and I'm gonna tell you this: if you're always gonna be, always gonna go to the safe zone, and you're always gonna go to the people that knows, every single detail, where your wheelchair is gonna fit or not, where you can go or not. I mean, that's fine. If you want a nice vacation,
Right.
you should do it. You should go with these people. But in my case, for me, bringing the accessibility issue and showing my videos of how I get transferred, how I got there, how I got into the camel, how did I row, that boat, and all of those things for me is very important because not many people do it.
Right. You
I
can't
don't want to,
accomplish those things in the safe zone.
yeah, yeah, you cannot accomplish that on the safe zone. If you
Right.
want to do a nice vacation, do it that way. But in my case, my mission, my goal is not that. My
Yeah.
goal is to travel and show people what inaccessibility can do to a person with a disability.
Hmm.
Because when they see me in social media and they see, oh my God, she's struggling. I can believe that she's being carried. Oh my God, why they're not helping her? Oh my God, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is what we need to make a difference.
Yeah.
This is wrong. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Got it. Along those lines of kind of living outside of the safe zone, you recently climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania to benefit Friends of Access Israel, which I think you mentioned earlier. What was that experience like?
Oh my God, it was amazing. I never thought that I will climb Mount Kilimanjaro ever in my life. It was amazing. The organization is a really great organization that's giving the opportunity to so many people with disabilities to go to the most beautiful places in the world. And one of them is Mount Kilimanjaro. And it's for everyone. That's what I like. You don't have to be from Israel. You can be from any part of the world and join them. And also they're focusing on accessibility and inclusivity. And, I'm very impressed with Kilimanjaro because I never thought that, when we think about camping and hiking, trekking, it's just being in the mountain, sleeping in a tent or, and sleeping in the floor, being on the floor with the sleeping bags or whatever. But no, I mean, in Kilimanjaro, they have these amazing huts where it's like a small wood houses where you just can get in and sleep there. It's super cold.
I bet.
It's very, very cold. The higher you go, the colder it gets. Right. So I was very impressed with the accessibility there because some of those huts had like ramps, had handicap accessible restrooms. And it's very challenging for someone in a wheelchair because you have different type of terrains, different climates. So, and it's not an easy task, but it just, having the opportunity to go to a place that is not accessible was for me very life-changing, I guess.
Sure.
Because it helped me appreciate everything I have at home, and also make me have time for myself and think about what is next for me.
Yeah.
So,
what an awesome experience.
And also challenge myself in so many ways.
Yeah.
So.
What was, how long did it take you to get to the top?
So we were a big group of 27 hikers, only 26 conquered the mountain. So it took us 7 days. We left on Tuesday and came back on Monday. So not 7 days, 6 days. Mm-hmm. So on Tuesday, we left Tuesday. So we had like 8 hours trekking. And really, we could probably go on more, but because we were 4 in wheelchairs, so we had to rest because we cannot put too much rest. So it was 4 people with disabilities and 21 or 22 people with no disabilities. So we did every day. We did like 6 to 8 hour trekking.
Yeah.
So we were like that on Tuesday, full day Tuesday, full day Wednesday, full day Thursday. On Friday was half day, and then we had to spend the night in Kibo. And the next day we have to rest. We couldn't hike because the same night on Saturday night, like that was Friday to Saturday, we stay in Kibo. We stay like a day and a half. We have to acclimate. We couldn't just go out.
Right.
So, and then we had to acclimate. We had to just relax for the summit. The summit, it was like another 6 hours. So on Saturday night, we left to the summit. And believe me, just to get to that peak, it's not very easy because it's very steep. Just imagine in a wheelchair. It's super steep and scary. For me, it was very scary to just look down and see that, and see just like this huge, how do you say in English when you're all the way on the top and you look back and you see all these,
like a cliff,
the cliff was like, it's, for me, it was very scary, but I made it. And once I got to the top, I got very emotional because it cost me a lot to get there. But yeah, I mean, I made it. I was happy. I got emotional. And then I came back to America with this mentality like, okay, well, you climb Mount Kilimanjaro. Not many people climb Mount Kilimanjaro. So what is next? Right. So your goals must be bigger than Mount Kilimanjaro on anything.
Yeah.
You know, so
it kind of reshaped your view on life and what's next for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So what are some of those dreams that maybe, if you're open to sharing them, that have come from that experience?
One of the things that I really would like to do is really keep helping people, like in a way that make the world an accessible place for all. And to be able to grow a brand where enables me to donate ramps, because as we were talking earlier, not every country pay as much as attention as others, and not many countries have the resources to make their own communities accessible. So what I would like to do is to be able to grow the Journey of a Brave Woman brand to do more than just traveling and bringing awareness. I would like to just really donate ramps and help children and young adults to be independent.
Sure.
And by helping them be independent is by making their place accessible. So that's one of the things that I really want to focus and I really want to help. But the coronavirus hit us this year. I had another project that I wanted to do in Peru this year. And also I wanted to do the same like I did in India last year, where I donated ramps to a tennis complex. You know, it's simple things, you know, like we had this group in Asia in India, an hour away from Bangalore, and we had this adaptive tennis team. These kids with all type of disabilities, mostly wheelchairs, you know, train 2 or 3 times a week in that tennis court, in that tennis complex, and every time they went there, they had to be helped, you know, from their mom, dad, uncle to get to the tennis court so they can play tennis and practice, right? They didn't have no ramps. So all I had to do is just donate 3 ramps that will give them access straight to the tennis court without asking for help.
Yeah.
And that's what I posted in my social media. I posted videos and photos to people to show people what those ramps can do for these kids. And I even posted, you know, a video of these kids getting into these ramps, you know, and it gave them freedom. It gave them independence. So now I know that these kids, every time they go to play tennis, they don't need mom and dad and uncle's help. Now they can just get there by themselves.
Yeah.
So just those little things, yes, that little gesture, that little thing that I did is really, it was a lot for them.
Sure, absolutely. Because
in
it's
a big way.
It's one more step towards independence for those kids. It's one
Exactly.
more thing that they don't have to, they can, like you talked about in your journey, being able to kind of reclaim the things that you can do. And that becomes one more thing that they can do instead of being focused and reminded of what maybe they can't do at that season. They are able to
Exactly.
own the things that they can and focus on the tennis instead of the moments of getting on and off the tennis court.
And so, yeah, that's what I would like to do moving forward.
I have a follow up question on that, on projects like that one. So when it comes to like raising the funds to donate those ramps, do you leverage that from social media, or how do you get the resources to do that?
Okay, so the first year, which was last year, it was all my money. I
Mm,
worked very hard. I save. I plan this trip. When I travel, I travel very cheap, so that's why I never hire any tour agency
hmm.
to take me anywhere. Or if I don't hire them, I collaborate with them. Like I bring I try to just like bring their brand into my social media so
Sure.
people see that they exist.
Almost they help sponsor
And
your trip a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, they sponsor my tour trips, like with hotels and tours, right? Not my ticket, but everything that I did is with my own money. The ramps were donated with my own money. And so early this year, I launched a t-shirt line where, if you buy a shirt, I'm gonna be donating a part of that to make my my accessibility project in Peru.
Got it.
So to make it possible. So, but you know, when you want to do things like that, if I want to really do Peru, I am not gonna wait for people to buy my t-shirts.
Right.
I'm just gonna get whatever I make with those t-shirts and make my project possible. You know what I mean? I
Right.
don't care because I already invested like $3,000-4,000 on my t-shirts. And not many people has purchased them because they don't know much about what I'm doing and what I want to do, because I'm working on my website right now. And I try to sell more, but uh, I have never asked people to give me money or donate money. This is something new for me,
Sure.
and that I need to get better. And so that's why I'm trying to join as many podcasts as I can, so I can spread out the world that, listen, I am not going to sell 100 t-shirts to make a positive change in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever money right now I'm fundraise or I get, I'm gonna make sure that my project is done.
Mm-hmm.
And I already invest anything I could invest. So that's what I'm gonna do.
That's
Peru
awesome.
is gonna happen regardless if I sell t-shirts or not.
Yeah.
But I still wanna get t-shirts because I don't want my whole money also,
Yeah.
to help out. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Before we wrap up, a lot of the families that we work with, we're working with families that have kids on rare medical journeys, and they've received a diagnosis, almost always it's either at birth or shortly after birth. And so those
Yeah.
kids, they grow into a normal, kind of their whole life.
Yes.
They're familiar with the limitations and some of the challenges that they have to face. It's what they've always known. But as we talked about before, your quote normal, kind of changed overnight when you had your accident. And so, if you could go back, if you could imagine Marcela just a few days after your accident, you're at the lowest point, and you are, you've just gone through the accident. You've had any surgeries that you've needed to have. You've been told about the passing of your boyfriend and all of these tragic moments. If you could go back and tell something to yourself at that point, from your perspective now, what would you tell yourself?
Marcela, you're normal
Hmm.
with different abilities. Okay. You're still the same Marcela, but you have different abilities. You have, a different ways to make life possible for you. So, and this is how I always, and not, this was my mentality when after my accident,
Hmm.
you know, that yeah, I may not be able to walk, but I have my wheelchair. I may not have a leg, but I have my other limbs.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to see the positive of this. And when you say about parents and children's, parents having children's, born with disabilities and stuff, I will just say that we are normal. We
Absolutely.
are we are we are still people with the same feelings, with the same dreams, with the same desires of conquering the world.
Hmm.
It's just that we do it with different abilities, and their children are gonna conquering, and they're gonna pursue their dreams by using their different abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we need to see.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely. What role did your parents play and those around you in helping you own that mentality in those difficult moments after the accident of I may not have the ability to walk, but I do have my wheelchair. Like you mentioned, I may have lost one limb, but I have the other limbs.
yeah
What role did your parents and those around you play in helping you find that? Because what you just said, I think parents that we talk to and that listen to what the stories that we're telling, they
yeah
need to know. They need to know that their child, despite a diagnosis that may have received or a very medical perspective they may have just gotten about the realities of what's ahead for their children, they need to know that they still have permission to dream with their children. They still have permission, and they can help set the stage for their children to thrive, regardless of what situation they may be in. And so I was just curious, what role did your family play in helping you own that outlook?
Okay, so after my accident, I barely see my mom crying for me. Okay, so she never pitied me. She never pitied me. And she never treated me as a disabled person. That was a must for my mom. And I am so thankful that she never treated me as someone different because I had my accident. She treated me as Marcela, the daughter that she always had. Nothing happened with Marcela. Now Marcela is in a wheelchair. Marcela is able to do whatever she wants in her wheelchair. That was my mom attitude. And she didn't need to say that to me.
Yeah.
I could just see it with her actions. And I think that pitying our children and say, oh, poor baby, oh, I do this for you, I do that for you, it's not good sometimes.
Sure.
Because you are making them rely on yourself 100%. My mom, I rely on my mom after my accident, maybe 80-20. And I think that's why I became so independent and I started to just redo my life, that at some point made her scared that, oh my God, where is she at? I don't see her. She's gone all day. Where is, and so I don't know if this was the right decision,
She helped you become too independent.
She helped me too independent that, months later, she was too worried because Marcela wasn't at home. And I was, my 20s, and you want to have friends, you're gonna have two boyfriends, you want to have fun,
right.
You want to go to the clubs, bars, and I think that she wasn't like prepared for that.
Yeah.
But that happened.
Yeah. Well, Marcela, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and sharing openly and honestly. And I think that especially that bit that you just shared as far as the perspective and owning the normalcy of being able to still do whatever you want to do is something that I think will resonate with our audience and really be an encouragement to especially our parents that listen. And so thank you for that. Before we wrap up, tell our listeners how they can find you and connect with you on social media and online.
So I want to tell your listeners, first of all, is that anything is possible. Stay positive, stay calm, and always hope for the best. And you can find all my craziness and all my mess and all my adventures in the Journey of a Brave Woman Instagram and Facebook page, and also on the journeyofabravwoman.com, where I'm going to put all my pictures and my blogs about all my travels. And also you can buy my t-shirts at the Brave Woman shop. You can see the link on my Instagram and on my website, where anything you buy, I'm going to be donating to make my second accessibility project available in Peru.
Awesome.
Possible in Peru, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the work that you're doing. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Although our aim at Go Shout Love is to do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys, we also want to be a partner and an advocate for people and communities that can relate and embrace these kiddos. Marcela was not born with a rare medical journey, but her conversation is important in our mission. For our community, she is relatable, and her voice, her visual presence on social media is trying to help the world become a little bit better with inclusion of those who have disabilities. We are very grateful for her time and her willingness to have a conversation with us today. Thanks for listening. If you are not a subscriber to our podcast, you might want to go ahead and do that. We have a great family that we are going to introduce to you soon, and their journey and experience with their kiddo is definitely something you won't want to miss. In between listening and waiting on our next episode to come out, never forget to go shout love. Thanks.